Oh, it's on.
Okay. And I want to say thanks to everyone. There's so many people that showed up on a Sunday morning.
I know.
And everyone knows Andy, the world famous artist and now clothing co-conspirer with Rachel Comey, which we appreciate you letting us have the space. And my name is Wong. I used to make this magazine called Giant Robot way back when. And this is really cool to get to be invited.
Yeah. It's always a pleasure with Martin. I can talk to Martin any day, anytime, any hour, for as long as we want.
Yeah, but he wants to go to the fancy coffee shops, and I want to go to the like diving ones.
It's true. I know.
It's the eternal conflict.
I'm post-gentrified, bougie.
But let's start this. I'm wondering, have you seen anyone wearing a Rachel Comey dress with your design yet? Just walking down the street in Pasadena or Beverly Hills, where you grew up.
Unfortunately, I have not seen anybody wear the dress except in the store. But let me tell you, it's a very nice dress.
Have you tried one on?
I haven't tried the dress on. No, that's a good question. But I did request a piece of the fabric so that I can make a pair of shorts from the dress.
Like boxers or like shorts jams you would wear out?
Yeah, definitely shorts that I can wear out.
Okay.
Yeah. Jams. Above the knee, I think.
Okay.
You have a good tailor.
So how I think not everyone here knows how the dress happened. It's very cool to see, an indie artist, which I consider you to be.
Thank you.
Although you have a traditional background and stuff, I consider you an indie or underground artist.
Yeah.
How did it wind up on here on Melrose? I think it's really cool.
I like this story because it happened in a very kind of organic way. I never reached out to Rachel about it. What had happened was I was posting my work through Instagram and Facebook, and I was pretty consistent doing that over the last few years. And there was a organization called the Posters that a woman, Athena Curry, and her partner Adrian had started, and they had reached out to me by seeing my work through Instagram and through their kind of network of friends. They saw my wreaths that I do the Halloween wreaths.
The Grim Wreather.
The Grim Wreather, yeah, I do the Halloween wreaths as the Grim Wreather, and then they saw the drawings, and so they organized a studio visit. So I did a studio visit with them, and they were like, let's try it. I got along with Athena very well. I had only met with her, and she said, let's try it out, let's put it up on the website, we'll send out a newsletter. And so when she put it up on the site, and she started posting stuff to her Instagram account had probably about, I think at that time, around 13,000 people that followed them. And when we had met, she felt like that our kind of customers, or the people that were interested in my art and that were interested in what she did, would kind of gel and be pretty, be a good mix. And so when she started posting images of my work through her Instagram account, apparently that's when Rachel Comey did the research and reached out to me directly, because I wasn't being represented.
So it was like Rachel at RachelComey.com, and she said, "Hey, I make."
She said. I was about to go to Palm Springs. I was on my way to go to stay at the It House in Joshua Tree with my science fiction book club. I was leaving that day. We were celebrating our 16th year anniversary, and we were going to spend the weekend out in Joshua Tree discussing, I forget which book we read for our anniversary, little company. And I received this email from Rachel Comey at RachelComey.com. Rachel, something seriously, it was like that. And she said, well, I think, I don't know. She said, hey, I saw your artwork on Instagram, and I have it written down in the little book that I created about like what she kind of said about the work, because it was really interesting. It was just this very kind of simple sentence, like it was weird and colorful or something like that. And she's like, I'd be curious. I'm a fashion designer from New York, and I'd be curious to know if you want to do a collaboration.
So were you familiar with her work, or like?
The name was super familiar because she, well, first of all, I don't buy women's clothing, so but I do follow fashion.
Right.
So it was kind of, I knew the name through that, and also she's very popular with artists. In particular, the art community I think she kind of works, makes clothes in a way that is very interesting to artists as well. So I had known her name, but then my friends Elisa Lofton and Kathleen Johnson, who are in the book club, came to the anniversary thing, and I said, Rachel Comey reached out to me, and they flipped out. So Elisa had a store on 3rd Street called Arrow and Company, and I think, and she was always interested in kind of indie, cutting edge, Los Angeles-based designers, but she obviously kept abreast of all this kind of stuff that was going on, across the country.
The whole David Bowie thing is kind of cool too, right?
Yeah, I mean,
cool.
and also I did the piece about David Bowie. So yeah, Rachel, I guess she built a name for herself because David Bowie did wear a T-shirt or something that he designed.
That's the legend that I read somewhere. I looked her up after this.
So I mean, she's got cool, so locked down. So it was very and then Kathleen says, "Oh my God, Kathleen, who's in the book club, was just like over the moon as well." And she says she actually buys like a piece every year from her to collect her work and stuff. So
it's a special occasion.
So anyway, she said she wanted to license it. So we talked, and she said she wanted to license a drawing, and then and that was something I had never done before. But it was a thing. It was a dream that I've always had. Was actually when I make the drawings, I've actually researched it and tried to figure out how to do textiles using the drawings, and it was almost like, I had put the word out there, and the universe provided this amazing experience.
I think that's really incredible that this happens, but after your gallery life, because you think that's the sort of thing that like your agent or your gallerist would make happen.
Yeah, like a publicist or something. Like exactly.
Yeah, but then it happened, as when you were an independent artist, just putting stuff out there into the interwebs,
Yeah, and that's and I teach about this because I'm pretty passionate about artists and social media. In particular, I think my generation, I'm in my 40s, so I'm I guess mid-career. That in particular, I think with artists that I went to school with and the type of art that I studied, it wasn't illustration, it wasn't street art, it was contemporary, post-studio practices where you go to a graduate school and then you kind of enter into this system of a very kind of hierarchical system where you start off with an emerging gallery and then you move on to a bigger gallery, and you just build your career up in this trajectory. Once I quote unquote lost my gallery, which basically I said I talk shit. They sent me an email saying that they no longer want to represent me. I thought I had this kind of mixed emotions about it. It's okay, well, at least I know now what was going on, why they were so distant and so difficult to kind of pin down. But it was sad because it was I had gone to graduate school and I started into this trajectory of showing with an emerging gallery, and the gallery, China Art Objects, was kind of building up in its business or whatever you want to call it. And then I had shown with them for, I had the first or second show there, and then and I had showed at their 10-year anniversary, and then 2 years later they want to move on and part ways. And so on one hand I was really concerned about it, and on the other hand I felt this huge weight off my shoulders that I could kind of take charge.
It wasn't just a client relationship though, because there were friends that you came up in school with, right? Or
absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, if anybody knows the story, Giovanni, dying, and halfway through the kind of probably about 5 years into having the gallery, Giovanni dying was a real, mind blower. And then Steve and Francis kind of taking over the gallery, and it was just so, we were very interconnected.
Yeah, I'm sorry for bringing up
no, it's okay.
memories.
It's okay. And then the reason why I wanted to bring it up, and I wanted to talk about it, is so when that thing happened, when the break-off happened, I remember very kind of clearly processing it. I processed things through running and meditation and things like that, and kind of knowing that that really feeling deeply like once the door closes, it opens up another door. I knew it, and so what I feel happened was when I had a gallery, I felt like I relied too much on them anyway to kind of create these connections. Like, why am I not having a show at this place, or having why am I not getting studio visits from, from curators, from museums? Why, all this kind of stuff, and always asking why. But once it was like my own thing and I took charge of my own kind of practice and my own career, there is no why. The only reason why is like because I didn't reach out to do something.
So were you already super familiar with social media? Were you comfortable with that transition from having a gallery, do all that stuff for you, to you having to promote yourself? Because it's not like Rachel Comey just discovered, like you put a lot of work into it. You're putting stuff out all the time.
And look, I love sales. In fact, I always kind of say, I worked at Music Plus in high school.
Did you get yourself good concert tickets? Like when one, did you have that?
I actually had to run I had to run the Janet Jackson concert for Ticketmaster that was pre-computers, and so it was all through calculators and running a till, cool. And I was not a penny off, and it was thousands of dollars. So anyway, I love sales. I remember Bronson. What was his name from LA Law? Pierce Brosnan came in and wanted a CD.
Music Plus?
Yeah, Music Plus. I heard him and Rita Rudner. Like, I would get these people in, and I could sell. I loved walking around and selling them. Like, oh, have you listened to this, Supertramp album? It was. Anyway. What were you talking about? Oh, so was it comfortable picking up the? Yeah, was it comfortable picking up the?
Yeah, just transitioning from being.
I built. Okay, so when I left China Art Objects, it was in the middle of me working on a project where I built an application. I had worked in technology, and I was interested in particular development that was happening with coding, with Ruby and Ruby on Rails and this PHP and all these kind of engineering kind of. What do you say? There's kind of like momentum happening where it was becoming easier and easier to build applications through. They're almost kind of like mosaic pieces. So I was working for this guy, and I was interested in the kind of entrepreneurial aspect of technology, and so I built with an engineer in Pakistan. I designed the site, and the engineer in Pakistan built it, and it was an application for artists to kind of facilitate conversations between artists, where only artists were going to be allowed onto this application or whatever. I built the application and I showed it at the Glendale Community College with Roger, who was the guy who ran the space in Glendale. And so I built the application. It was a functioning web application, and my idea was it was supposed to be kind of like disruptive in the sense that it was creating another avenue for artists to make artwork that wasn't about the economy. It wasn't about networking, galleries, museums, and all that kind of stuff. It was supposed to be for artists to have conversations with each other. But there is a but. And because actually I loved and I built it the wrong way because it was about what I loved. I loved art school. I loved the critique process. I loved the conversation that happens around art. And one of the things that I suffered from after graduating from school is when you have a show, then you have the show, you put it into a gallery, and then the gallery kind of like basically does this thing, and this is actually part of the social media thing that I like, is the gallery actually almost forced distance between the people who are interested in the work and the artists. It was like almost they like cloak them in this mysterious fog. So you don't actually have access to the artist, and the artist doesn't really have access unless you're like Damien Hirst and you're eating with the prince of, I don't know, whoever. But for the most part, it's like, it was just me, and like I have a show, and then everyone artist I know call it screaming into the void, where they pour their heart and soul into something, and then they put it out there, and then nothing really, it's like an echo chamber. You don't hear anything, kind of. So my goal was to build an application to kind of fill that void, so that once you have a show up, there is this okay, there's a show. There would be either at that time QR codes were cool, so it's like you go to the space and you have a QR code and you kind of take a picture of it, and it facilitates having this critique, oh, why did you do this, or was there a reason because of that, so that when you have a show in a space, or if you're in the studio, you can kind of get that back and forth between artists.
You didn't enjoy being behind the velvet rope at all, being this mysterious artist, channeling the ideas of the gods or whatever and giving it to the people. You didn't like that even a little bit,
No, and it was weird, and the first time I felt not liking it, and it's not, I'm being just fully honest, was actually at my graduate thesis exhibition. I built this show, and it was really psychic. The show was all about kind of connections.
With the pyramid and that one, or was it a different?
No, it's one with these boxes, and I did the windows and their boxes, and it's all this, I designed a camouflage pattern of crystals and clouds, and I painted these huge crates, and inside the crates was the star nursery was like a universe that was being born, and then there was an audio portion of it in the space where there was it was a conversation between it was from this movie The Other, about a grandmother and a little kid about how to be psychic.
So you were this god making a universe, but you didn't like being mysterious? Wait, what?
No, I like being, no, those are two different things. I didn't like being behind a velvet rope. No, I like talking about my ideas. No, I don't like, the mysteriousness isn't, I didn't like the feeling of, all eyes are on you, and then also from there I was starting to meet with galleries, and there's this weird kind of, I don't know, I felt it, and don't want to speak for other artists, but there was this double-edged sword where it's yes, you're allowed to be ambitious, but don't be too ambitious. So so I had a show at Richard Tejas Gallery, and I remember it was a two-person show. This was right after I graduated, and he had seen the show at my thesis project, and he said, oh, well, let's have a two-person show with me and this guy Torben. And Torben was a great artist. He went to UCLA, I was at Art Center, and I started getting word that people were coming into the space, and he was telling people, he was literally talking shit about, and there's two pieces in the show, and he was talking shit about me and my work, and don't look at this work, look at Torben's work, I'm really bummed that I'm showing this, and so someone called me, I think it was Richard Hawkins called me and said, or Bruce Haley, and said, by the way, Richard Tejas, if you go in the gallery, he'll start talking shit about you. And I found out why, and then I asked why, and it turned out that he thought I was talking to Margot Levin about showing me. And so, and Andy's so ambitious, and it was another gallery, and I wasn't talking to Margot Levin. I had a show at Margot Levin, and I wasn't talking. So it was this weird kind of, so I already started getting this feeling of okay, there's something not right about this.
Well, it sounds like you enjoy.
And that's why I showed with China Art Objects, because they were totally mellow, and Giovanni was awesome. So
yeah, but the thing is that the democratization of art, on one hand, it allows you to reach out and be more direct, with people, and be honest with, people who like your art.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it also kind of takes away power from these structures that are built, the galleries, that have their own politics, that just kind of get in the way.
There's a shift happening. I think we were talking about it too earlier about what's happening now seems to be has happened with the music industry. It's happening with the art. So there's these articles about middle market galleries going under, great galleries like Acme closed, and they didn't go under, they just closed. Margot Levin closed. Unfortunately, Richard Tejas is still open, but. These galleries that are leaving, and that and it's just these major galleries are becoming, so Blum and Poe, which is, Gagosian, Castelli, just these big galleries, and it just seems like it's kind of, where does that leave, artists that aren't showing on that scale, and those are kind of interesting questions to kind of ask. And that's why I was thinking social media in a weird way allows you to, and I hate calling it social media, but anything that has a connection, between the person that is producing something and an audience, And like for me, for Instagram in particular, or Facebook, where it like allows me to actually find an audience that is kind of interested in, you know, the world that I inhabit, and there's already kind of, and being able to kind of reach them directly and kind of talk to them and have conversations back and forth with them cuts back a lot. Or they're like with the gallery system, it really does, it is different where the gallery actually creates that space that we talked about, that cloud around the artist. And I think like my generation of artists has a really hard time dealing with that there is, like what you said, this kind of desire to be behind a velvet rope, and that if you are selling your own artwork or presenting your own artwork, but I think that there's like, that's not cool. But the younger generation doesn't seem to have that problem at all. They're like, yeah, whatever.
No, this totally reminds me of, I think I read an interview with Thurston Moore who said like there's no middle class in music anymore. Like you got these big pop stars and like these, you know, indie bands that are totally happy playing in garages. But in the middle, it's like really hard to survive, and it seems like it's that way in art.
Yeah.
And I guess the businesses and structures that are in place help out the big ones, but you're on your own if you're in the middle or indie these days.
Yeah, but then it's like someone was saying like yesterday on Facebook he's like, he's like generated, went to school the same time as me. He's like, I'm looking for a gallery, and I'm like, well, yeah, and I'm not going to say like I'm not going to show at the gallery, because I actually do think galleries, just like Rachel Comey, galleries, stores, anything kind of give context to an artist. And I think that the context is important, and of course you want to be connected to people that are kind of like-minded or in your world or whatever. But I'm saying like don't wait for that to happen first. It's almost like that, you know, that punk rock thing, and you know much more about it. It's like you just got to do what you like to do and kind of put it out there, and being consistent about putting it out there, every time you put something out there, it's like there's a possibility that might touch the right person at the right time, and something might happen from that. So don't stop, you know, or don't wait.
You kind of mentioned, you know, having a real job. You mentioned, you know, being dropped by the gallery. Was there ever a time when you stopped making art?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it was because I think there was like a pivot that was happening of like, okay, so what do I do? So I went to school, I studied sculpture and installation. Sculpture and installation is like the least pragmatic art practice anybody could have, to not while having a job. While having a job, it's totally fine. Like, you know, I had a great paying job working as a creative director, and I was able to fund my work directly from my paychecks.
You were your own patron.
I was my own patron, and I was like interested in my own, and then I had a space to make it. So, but then when China Art Objects stopped, then I didn't have a space to make installation, and you know, and it was like it was basically around the same time that, you know, my kid was probably 2 at that point, and I just had to figure out like, how do I make artwork that fits into this kind of life, and how do I continue to be creative, because not being creative is just not an option. It just makes me depressed. So I figured out, like, I started, you know, my drawing practice up again. I had a drawing practice earlier, and I knew that was actually the place that I was the most.
What do you mean drawing practice? Like a habit, like a routine, or?
Yeah, and it started off like really at a young age, like in particular in high school, it became very important, like where it was a way for me to focus and to concentrate was to draw. So in class I would doodle, and and then in college I would always draw in sketchbooks, and I think most artists are like.
And then you would draw during meetings at work. And then
and I started a blog when I was at Napster called something like I Promise I'm Listening. And it was this thing where it was like all my doodles, and a lot of people think that you're not paying attention while you're doodling, but actually it's for me it was like a way to focus my attention better, and to remember things. And I think that's why people take notes. It's not like they actually review their notes, they just take notes because like the touching of the paper and the pen kind of lights something up neurologically.
Well, now they use those little spinner things.
Oh, fidget spinners, yeah. If only you could make something from a fidget spinner. And so I drew in there, and then I drew it when I was in China Art Objects. I had, actually the things I sold most were the drawings. That was the easiest thing for them to sell. But then I came back to drawing because it was something where I could set up on my countertop right next to the the stove, and Jack could play there, and I wasn't like on my screen, and
You're
so
not
there was
using
no
toxic material. Or...
No, I use all kind of like, you know, no toxic material. So yeah, so it was something I could integrate into my life of being a dad.
How do you squeeze in, you know, all this illustration work you've been doing, plus being a dad, and not being a lousy husband, and then also, you know, having Grim Reaper on top of that? Seems like you're just on, there's a really huge balancing act, but at the same time you seem happier than ever.
Well, I think that's all that stuff, like, you know, lends itself to being happy, because and figuring that out. I'll give big shout out to my therapist, Wendy Goodwoman. Well, and over the years, just figuring out, like I said, the drawing practice and then the studio practice of making the Grim Reaper stuff. So when I actually go into the garage and I'm like twisting wire and hot gluing and stuff like that, that's kind of the same thing as the touching the pen to the paper and the drawing. And those things, if I don't do those things, then I can't be a good husband, and I can't be a good dad, you know? So, I mean, I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but like, I feel like that's all our work that we do, is try to figure out, and I think actually people that do have huge studio practices probably aren't good husbands, and probably aren't good dads. I hate to say it.
But
like,
I also think a lot of people, you know, they'll think they're being the best possible parent or role model by going to work and putting on a tie and
I don't think so.
being legit. But I think following your passions and being happy and seeing you being creative and being part of a community, I think that's really important too.
Yeah, I'm way more into that modeling than disappearing. You know, I make sure I'm done at 3 o'clock to pick up Jack from school, and I have Rosalie and Jack, and we do our library, or go to Taekwondo or Kung Fu or whatever he does, and then still not sure. It's karate, actually. I actually asked him, I was like, what are they doing here? So, no, I think, you know, I feel like that's just, I've integrated it into the life, and I've figured out ways that, an equation of like what equals quote unquote happiness.
When you decided to go to art school, what did you envision like being an artist was gonna be like as an adult?
First, that's
or even as a kid, seeing your parents, you know, how did you feel like you were gonna be a parent, you know, or an adult?
I never thought about being a parent. I was gay, so I never thought about getting married either. I thought going to
Still
art
are
school.
gay.
Yeah. No, I'm not. Once you're over 30, you're not gay anymore. I thought going to art school I was going to see a lot more gay guys.
Oh.
And I was actually shocked. I went to UCLA. I totally went to UCLA. And let me tell you, art is a straight man's game.
Instead. What were you thinking?
Art is a straight man's game. Like they always say, they like their straight white male artists to make gay-looking art. They like their women to make straight male artists type of art. I mean, it's a totally. It's true.
The guys go through a bi phase. Just to
yeah. I mean, if you're into art, if you're a straight guy and you're into making art, you're kind of gay. You know, I mean, you're as close to gay. It's because they're upset that they don't like dick. You know, so it's like I think that's part of it. But I thought I wanted to be a muralist. I liked. I grew up in Los Angeles. I loved Judy Baca, and I loved the Three Masters. You know, I was really into Sigueros. I was like, I wanted to be a muralist.
What about the Wailing Walls? You know, the big.
I know the
Killer Wells on the side.
Oh yeah, Wieland.
Yeah.
No, not so much
Beach,
into him. No, Kent Twitchell, those guys, not so much. I like the stuff that was politically charged and about social justice.
Mm-hmm.
I was like way into that look. And Judy Baca was teaching at UCLA, and I was like, I'm going there. And I went there, and I realized this is not my bag. So I was like, I'm not into it. So.
But did you consider your stuff, you know, is it political though somehow? I mean, you're still saying stuff. I think you're still inspired by current events and.
I mean, if you walk out I always thought about that. Like, what do I say about the drawings, you know? Because I'm used to talking. I love talking. I think intellectually, I think installation work, conceptual artwork, post-studio practices, whatever you want to call it, really kind of privilege the prefrontal cortex and thinking and especially Western, like modernism, you know, there's that split. I remember Chris Burden saying there's a split between Picasso and there was
and Picasso.
No, Picasso. No, and Dada, and what's his name? The wheel on the chair. Duchamp. Thank you. There was a split between Duchamp and Picasso, and you know, and I thought that always rang true to me. And there was like the people that went to Picasso that went kind of into the painting, stylistic, and then there was Duchamp that was just a very heady stuff. And in my art schools, it was like all about Duchamp. It was all about a very intellectualized practice. And so when I make the drawings, I'm like, what do I say about the drawings? Like people want, like, you know, people want to know or whatever. But I think the drawings, in a weird way, I was thinking about it, is just like there's nothing there. There's no thinking. There's no. I mean, is that a political practice? Yes, I think so. In particular, because it's like the practice in itself is. You know, it's touching the paper to the pen, the feeling. And as soon as a thought comes into my mind, in fact, you know, I listen to podcasts and stuff while I'm doing it, philosophy podcasts or podcasts on religions, or even sometimes I'll have a TV show going on or something. And I just, like, as soon as a thought comes into my mind, I try to just, like, you know, breathe it away or push it away a little and just.
You should be listening to Enya instead.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'll listen to ambient music.
What about? I was going to ask you about, you know, arts. You know, you mentioned Chris Burden and Mike Kelly. What was it like, you know, going to school with, you know, big names like that?
What was it like going to school?
Were they cool? Was it intimidating? Like what?
So Chris Burden, they're all different. So there's like Chris Burden, Mike Kelly, Paul McCarthy, three guys. There's also Nancy Rubens, Chris Burden's wife, and she is an amazing scholar. She's an amazing teacher. Nancy Rubens was like an incredible teacher. Liz Larner, an incredible teacher. Patty Podesta. So like going to school in Los Angeles at that time was just like, I mean, I couldn't have asked for a better exposure to incredible people. But so for instance, Chris Burden was really intense. So every time he taught a class, it was set up almost like he really thought about like the class. And so there was, at a time, there was a lot of like people taking pictures of people and not asking their permission. And so he was really annoyed by that. So he set up set up surveillance cameras in the classroom. It was like, those cameras are all taping these classes and I'm gonna do work from them. And everyone's like, well, that's bullshit. And so it kind of set up this argument about that. And then it turns out they weren't actually even plugged in. And he was very like, he would push buttons, you know, and he set up things like labs, you know, like where you actually it was more kind of scientific stuff, like he would teach architecture, because he was interested in architecture. So he was a really unique teacher. Mike Kelly, you know, had this passion for popular culture that was, I think, very distinct from, like, he was amazing to say he knew everything about everything. There was nothing he didn't. It was almost like he was like hyper vigilant. He had to be on top of everything. But his experience his relationship with popular culture is very different than our generation, where I think the artists I went to school with were much more fluid. He was very much about this kind of the connection between high and low, or the disconnect between high and low, where I think our generation were like, it didn't really matter that you could do paintings or whatever of like cats or something, and it didn't have to be ironic. It could actually be because you love cats or something. But he was a great teacher. Paul McCarthy was a really amazing teacher too. And it was nice because when I went to school, they didn't have the careers that they have today. You know?
This is boring to all of you because you know all these guys, and I don't. But to me, this is really cool to hear these stories. So thanks for humoring me.
Yeah.
You're talking about the blending of high and low art, but there's also like illustration in fine art now, and design and art, and commercial art, and you know, comic books even. You know, there's all this blurring between you know, true art and all the other arts. You know.
When I look on contemporary art daily, everything looks like art to me. I don't think there actually is as much of blurring as there used to be. I think when I went to school, it was much blurrier. I think that when I go to contemporary, they want art to look like art. I don't think there is. I mean, that's my experience. I don't know, and I'd be curious to hear what everybody else thinks. It's like a neon tube and like a rusted piece of paper and like something on the floor, and then it's about like, you know, Syrian refugees or something. And it looks like art. Like, you know, it looks very much like it's meant to speak to a specific class of people.
So how did you, bringing this back to the first question, how did you feel about your art winding up on a dress of Rachel Comey?
Oh my God, it was like a dream come true. I've always wanted to make t-shirts. I've never been able to make a t-shirt, a good t-shirt. What was my, what did I see? I was like, first of all, it was cool because at first I thought she was just going to use the whole drawing, but she actually worked with her designers to single out portions of the drawing. So to me that was signaled, at first I was like, oh, well, is that bad that she only used a portion? But no, then what I saw is like, she actually looked at the drawing. You know what I mean? Like she actually saw part of the drawing and it connected to her. And she worked with the designer and she changed the colors. And I love that. That was like, and then she played with scale, so there's like different scales of the illustration.
So she's like the Dust Brothers sampling.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I know. It was like the Paul's Boutique of artist fashion design collaboration. And then when you look at the shoes that she did don't look anything like the drawings.
Oh, they're cool.
Which is
they're like needlepoint, or I don't know what you call that.
They're embroidered.
Yeah, embroidered.
And then she did this white that is embroidered or something, this white thing, it's all white, and there's like, you could see there's a piece of a David Bowie drawing that I did.
It looks like you'd see it, like a dashiki on Krypton or something.
Exactly. Oh my God, totally. It is like a space, it's like a daishiki astronaut suit.
Yeah, it's very cool. God, it's kind of 2001.
No, I mean, I couldn't imagine the thing being any more generous than it was. But it was funny, my ego at first, when I saw it, I was like, oh wait, she didn't use the whole drawing. Does that mean she didn't like the drawing? So my ego was gotten away, and then I realized that no, that's actually what it does the best. It inspires, it's like it builds, builds on top of each other, creates something different.
For me, as like a fan and a friend, I've seen you show at China Art way back when.
Yeah.
Wendy and I helped make the book kind of recently, and we're
Amazing.
Very involved in your Grim Reader stuff.
Yeah.
But then to find out about this, you just dropped it on the side of the blue. Oh yeah, we're doing this. I felt like it was a triumph.
Yeah.
For my friend who was dropped by a gallery.
Yeah.
Who's been making art on his own and pushing it out to the world.
Yeah.
And then it's very cool for this dressing. I feel like you got shown at a big
and then I'll announce too, like the wreaths are going to be at opening ceremony this year. And that'll happen through basically continuing I don't know if it's continuing to do it. It's like I said, I stopped and I pivoted and I really focused on, working on work that I found pleasurable, and because of that, I think people noticed.
You kind of got married and had kids, and you kind of focused on that. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
You don't have to feel bad about that.
Yeah, that's true. So it's a good year, and I didn't want to jinx it, too. So because this thing, the Rachel Comey thing, has been like a year in the making. So yeah. Anything else?
I don't know. Maybe we should let other people ask questions because they've been letting us blab for so long.
Any questions?
If not,
do we get to see this dress?
The dress is like in the front corner, yeah. And there's different styles of it too. So yeah, I guess we should have had it hung up behind or something.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That'd be great.
Oh, maybe we can hang it in back here, just on one of those
so
hooks.
people can see it. Yeah.
Can you imagine that there's going to be other collaborations either with other people?
Well, I've actually been actively seeking it out now because I've tried to figure out, okay, so this happened, and I don't think that, and part of it is just like it's organic, and that you kind of just have to let things play out. But I've actually kind of been trying to figure out where, because I know Supreme and, all these different clothing lines do collaborations with Uniqlo, yeah, absolutely, H&M and all these things. And I know Crate and Barrel actually shows artists, so they'll do limited edition prints, and I how do you become one of those people that does that? Because actually I would like to do that. So yeah, I would love to figure that out. And I've been doing the research, like, who are these people that connect artists with, corporations?
I think it's interesting that you teach, artists, but you don't teach them art. You teach them like how to reach out on media and stuff and put their packages together. I think that's interesting.
Oh yeah. I think that's like a key. I teach at Art Center at night, and I teach at Fashion Institute, and I try to do it at Cal Arts too, which is like, I think that's what it is. It is this kind of like, for lack of a better term, it is this thing that artist is a brand, and I know that's just like full of, cringe-worthy stuff, but it is like, how do you package yourself and how do you present yourself is just the world we live in. Either you do it or you flip the switch off and you don't do it. And I'm not saying that things work differently for different people. For me, it was just like, look, I don't have time to flip the switch off. I have to figure out how to go full throttle forward.
You were saying how your art doesn't really reflect specific thoughts or politics, but I always think about, when I see them, I always think about how you're the sci-fi book dork when I look at it.
Yeah.
Because it has this mixture of, technology and various, levels of reality.
Yeah, I'll talk about that. That's a good point. Like, okay, so there's like, I always think I tell people, it's like, there's this China Melville book where there's like I always loved it. There's like these artists that live on this planet, and they look like, and the artists, they're women, and they're bugs, and basically what they do is they produce a wax or something in the back of their neck, and then they like eat it, digest it, and like put it back out, and then make sculptures from it. And I was like, okay, if that's basically the way. And when I say I don't try to think about anything, I think that's what I try to do, is that, I read the science fiction, I read the news, I read the politics, I look at fashion, I look at video games or what my son is doing and what they're kind of, and I like just assume that that's just the wax that gets like produced, and then I just digest it, and it's just basically like regurgitated versions of my, or not versions, regurgitated, visions.
Processing it.
Yeah, processing it into something that's a physical thing that then can be used as a opportunity to communicate with other people. Because why make something? I'm not like an artist that whittles away in the studio and hopes no one ever sees it or burns it or or locks it into a cupboard with It's like, I want people to see it, and I want people to like it, and I want people to talk to me about it.
You mentioned your kids and how they kind of work in your art. What about your husband? Because I know I'm really lucky that my wife, we kind of met making the magazine together, and now we do, zines together and other projects. What does your husband think of all this? Because he's kind of a straight guy. Like, he's the sweetest person.
No.
But he's kind of square, if you know what I mean. Like, what does he think of art and your pieces and all that?
He didn't like the art world. He did not like going to galleries. He didn't like Steve. That was for sure. But he loves what I do, and he loves the Rachel Comey thing, and he loves to see the pens everywhere, and he loves the influence it has on Jack, and that hopefully Rosalie will like drawing too, and like he loves and I think in a weird way it's a much more healthy relationship to the practice, where it's like he loves the practice. It's just the system in which the practice has to exist was problematic, and he really sensed that. I mean, I'll just say quickly, like there's no rhyme, there's no sense to that system, the gallery system, and at least the way I understood it. There was no sense to it because money. It's not like a dress where you understand the work that goes into the dress, who makes the dress, the brand adds a certain amount of value, and then you add that all up and you get to a price or whatever. Mm-hmm. Our world just doesn't work that way. And so it was very, I think for him, it just didn't make sense.
You're art anarchists.
Yeah, I think so. Try to be a little bit like a, well, I don't think so. I think I just try to bring it back down, to reality. I'd like a little bit more reality. Yes, Elaine.
I don't know, I relate to your description of your practice. as an expression of a certain type of authenticity that is part of producing art from the standpoint of the producer of the art usually since childhood.
Yeah.
It's kind of your thing.
Yeah.
And like you say, by drawing something, you're consciously and unconsciously focusing your mind and aesthetics,
Yeah.
and stirring up your visual acuity,
Yeah.
and honing it. And when I went to Art Center, I felt that whatever I had been doing my whole life was not wanted at Art Center.
Yeah.
It was whatever I was bringing, it kind of stopped me in my tracks from trying to bring that, and I tried to conform to the conceptual practice, which was not the way my brain was wired.
It's funny because I talked to Mark
So
Breitenberg.
after all these years, it's still not.
Yeah, I talked to Mark Breitenberg. It's funny because we went at different periods in our lives. Like you had a career already, and you came back to school. I was just like went from undergrad to grad school, and I just took it for granted like that's what art was. And then recently I met with Mark Breitenberg, who was like the head of the philosophy aspect of it. And he's like, oh no, when you went to art school, we totally messed that up at Art Center. We really pushed this. It was not good. And I was like, what? I was like, I spent, what, $80,000 on some weird test? Which is weird. I mean, if you go to RISD, Mike went to RISD, they've got a whole history. It's interesting. Like, you go and you spend whatever money.
They changed the curriculum when I was there, and also in grad school. It also felt like an experiment.
It feels like, but you know, UCLA was a good experiment because their experiment was like, they were like, oh, we're not going to teach you how to make anything. They didn't have a foundation. So like usually foundation is like you learn color theory, you learn how to make stuff out of plexiglass and wood. So like at UCLA, they were like, we're not going to teach you anything. Now that experiment though I thought was interesting, and even though I kind of wish I could go back and do a foundation thing to understand color theory better, like I get it though. They wanted you just to be like, what is it, bricoleur or whatever, like someone who builds things with just their experience of the world without the knowledge of actually how to build something, and that to me seemed like a better experience.
So that's kind of post-punk rock.
It is. It was very, but it was like, that's who it was. It was Chris Burden, Charlie Ray, Paul McCarthy, and Nancy Rubens, all kind of there. And then afterwards they brought in Mary Kelly, and I didn't know what the school was like after that, but they brought in this very heavy theoretical stuff, and apparently it really was not good. So I love theory. I actually love reading theory. I love reading philosophy, but like they gave philosophy to people without any kind of philosophical background. So like we didn't study Plato or any of the kind of the beginning. We were just thrown into Deleuze and Derrida and all these people. It was so confusing.
I wish I had a classical background in
Yeah.
education.
So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
It's a big hole.
I don't know, watch it.
Yeah,
I don't know how we're doing here.
Any other questions? Come on.
What time is it?
Okay, that's good.
That hour went really fast.
Yeah.
But he's here with donuts.
I'll stick around.
And actually, the book was supposed to be here today, the second batch of them.
Yeah.
But you can get on a list, and we'll make sure you get one, and he'll scribble in it.
Yeah, there's a little thing that says like, what do you want the inscription to be?
Yeah, we hope to have it today.
It was supposed to be here today.
But thanks for coming anyway. There's donuts. They're so good.
Yeah, thank you.